Welcome. I'm Dr. Megan Monday, and today we're doing a special Valentine's Day pleasure session. So, if you don't know me, I'm Dr. Megan. My background is as a psychologist. I've spent a dozen years as a trauma therapist, but I really wanted something more effervescent, more fun, more impactful. And that's when I became a pleasure psychologist. We spend so much time focused on the diagnosis, the problem, the trauma, and yet so many of us don't know how to feel good on a regular basis. So that's what we're going to be talking about. As we know, it's Valentine's Day. And let me just say, Valentine's Day is a trigger not just for single people, but also for people who are partnered. And I feel like it has the potential to be disappointing on both accounts. And so if you're one of those people who's feeling triggered, if you're feeling disappointed, maybe you didn't get exactly what you want, maybe your partner forgot, maybe you're not in the mood. Maybe you're feeling like it's less than what you're seeing on your Instagram reels. Maybe you're manifesting your true partner. Whatever state that you're in, whether you're solo or partnered, I just want to be the one here to validate for you that self love is the best love. Okay. So, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And I just want to kind of start a little bit with a story, a little blast from the past. I cannot believe it was almost 20 years ago that I was a baby therapist in grad school at Appalachian State, if anyone's an App State fan. Um, and I was doing my internship at the counseling center there. So I was working as a therapist, but I landed the lead role of, you guessed it, what happens on Valentine's Day? The vagina monologues. This was literally one of my pleasure breakthrough moments, and I want to sort of share the reveal with you. And that is that oftentimes when we think of pleasure, we think of pleasure as a dirty word. And anything like our sensuality or sexuality, there's so much sacredness and power there. But when we turn it taboo, when we send it underground, when we don't speak about it in an educational or positive or healthy way, it gets buried. And that's what happened to me when I auditioned for the vagina monologues. I had the final monologue, which is about a woman who does all the different types of orgasms. And here I was, someone who historically has been socially anxious, who was like a shy little kid, a fat kid that was bullied. I had all of these like visibility wounds, and to get up there and be in the spotlight and be embodied in my pleasure was such a breakthrough. And to be around women who were saying words like vagina over and over and over again, it just had this powerful effect of destigmatizing um, everything for me. And it was such a beautiful breakthrough. And actually, my counseling center folk at the time, my supervisor was actually in the show as well. And so I had so much support also just from the professional side of things that it did not feel like this weird double life kind of moment. And it was such a beautiful, like coming out, taking up the spotlight sort of thing. My cat's begging for some food. Excuse me. Out of here. He's very effective at that. He'll like paw the bag there. Anyway, it was definitely such a debut moment. And then to make matters worse slash better, the next morning I came into the office. Again, I was a baby therapist. And my client hands me the newspaper, and it's me mid orgasm, not in real life, but like in the show on the cover. Hello. This is Rocky. He's on his way out. Oh my gosh, he'll do that in the middle of the night to wake me up when he wants to be fed. And like literally, there's a whole bowl full of food. So I don't know what his issue is, but So that was such a beautiful moment for me to really see that um, we could have more of a professional setting, be an open place to explore pleasure and sexuality and orgasmic living. And so here I am on Valentine's Day, almost 20 years later, going live on Facebook talking about it. And I think many of us, when we hear the word pleasure, kind of cringe a little bit. Um, if you're a sex and relationship coach, you know that the censorship is real. And I understand why that exists, but I also think that there needs to be some sex positive education, and again, I'm focusing on the pleasure aspect in a sensual way, but really I think that pleasure extends to much more than that. It includes mindfulness, it includes happiness. It has so many gifts to give us. It is the ultimate self soothe. So, of course, when we think of pleasure, we tend to go straight to sex, but like food can be pleasurable, traveling can be pleasurable, a hug could be pleasurable, a deep conversation could be pleasurable, right? So there's so many, 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 many sources of pleasure. So again, I just want to open that word up to expand the definition. As I shared with you with my story with the vaginal monologues, uh, I have spent the past 15 years really helping women heal trauma. And often, when women have gone through trauma, they often turn their sexuality off and bury it deep because it becomes a trigger in itself. And so, I really do believe that getting in touch with your pleasure can be such a powerful technique for trauma healing and resolution. And so that's why I have come up with standing on the shoulders of many goddesses who do that pleasure and relationship work. But I really want to bring that, infuse it in with psychology and mindset and energy healing techniques. And I've called that pleasure psychology. So you may have heard of positive psychology. Um, that uses a lot of mindfulness and spirituality to really talk about how important having a positive mindset is. However, they don't really tell you how. And what I want to get into you with is how. How do we get that going for you? How can you feel good on Valentine's Day, whether you're single, whether you're partnered, whether you're hanging out with your fur babies, whatever your Valentine's Day plans are? Like, how can you feel good? And I think that it really is about having a dedication to your own sense of pleasure and feeling good as a priority. I like to call that self prioritization, but really it's also pleasure prioritization. And I feel like a lot of times, for example, I was a DBT therapist and we talk about distress tolerance. Can you tolerate those really heavy, hard, awful feelings without making it worse? Well, we have a pleasure tolerance level as well. How good can we feel before we get the ick, before we start self-sabotaging, before it starts to feel a little dangerous that we're feeling so good, that something might like the shoe might drop and sort of ruin it for us, right? And so what I want to do is edge up that feeling good. Because if you've been obsessed with the law of attraction, like I have for the past 2 decades, you know that the secret to manifestation is feeling good. But I think that's why people think that manifestation doesn't work, is because they cannot consistently hold a high vibration of feeling good. So that's what we're here to do today. We want to widen the definition of pleasure. We want to shout it from the rooftops, like in the monologues. And again, I want to bring this beautiful experience that I've had in the world of coaching, in the pleasure community with sex and relationship coaches, all these beautiful, empowering practices and techniques and philosophies. I want to bring that mainstream into psychology because psychology is so focused on the problem. And so, a really interesting model for trauma recovery is victim, survivor, thriver. So, victim's the initial stage when something traumatic has happened to you. The survivors, when you've gotten through that, maybe you're telling your story, maybe you're seeking help, but it's sort of again, this like it's over, but you're dealing with the aftermath. And then the fun part is the thriving, right? And so I think reclaiming pleasure is such a crucial part of trauma resolution. And people may get to the point where they're not depressed and anxious anymore, but sometimes they haven't really gotten to the point where they feel free, they feel good, they feel content, they feel sexy, they feel sensual, and they can trust themselves, their partner, their pleasure. Um, so I want that for you, just like I want that for me, right? And so I'm going to take you through a few small practices just to get us going in the theme of self love. Self love is the best love. So, again, no partner required. Um, and again, for those of you that are single on Valentine's Day, I know a lot of y'all are manifesting love. And I think that there is that piece of like, if you want it too bad, it just stays a little bit aloof, right? Like just so close, but a little bit out of reach. And so you could try something like this is a manifestation technique of like, oh, I don't want that. I already have it, like AKA reverse psychology, right? But we can kind of psych ourselves out because like I had the best barbecue chicken nachos for lunch. They were so good. Very pleasurable. Lots of like, oh, like this rich sauce, some cilantro, heavy cheese, just like over the top, right? But like I'm really full. Okay. So if someone's like, hey, I have the best nachos in the world, I'm like, I'm good. I don't want nachos. I already had nachos, right? Well, that's kind of a little mental trick you can use to manifest, right? Because when we're single, if you're desiring a partner, I know there's so many people who are like, no, I'm good. Totally honor the solo goddesses here. But if you are wanting a partnership, just try that instead of like yearning or like wishing. Try being like, oh, I don't need that. I already have it. And just see if that, then you're kind of like in the resonance of the satisfaction vibe, right? So for any of y'all human designers out there, I'm a generator, so their more positive emotion is satisfaction, and then their more toxic emotion is frustration, right? And so I think a lot of us go around chronically frustrated, burnout, pissed off, yelling. My daughter just did an impression of what we sound like in the mornings. It was humbling, y'all. Like, oh my God. I'm like, is that what I sound like? I hope not. She was embellishing a bit, of course, but maybe a little too close. So, if you're a mom out there, girl, woman, mom, you know you need some pleasure because what a tough job, right? So, anyway, um, again, would like to invite you to do a few practices with me today in honor of Valentine's Day. And I am launching my one on one Destiny, which is a pleasure liberation experience. It is also a container to help release traumatic mindsets. I did want to just give you a quick example. So, a really common one, you don't even have to have trauma to have this one. I think many people have this one, which is I can't get what I want, right? It kind of makes me think of that like Rolling Stones, like can't get no satisfaction. I used to play that all the time at the pool when I was little. But oh, it almost brings, like, a sense memory back. Um, there's, like, n nothing that reminds okay, I'm dating myself here, but there's nothing that reminds me of my childhood as, like, some radio blaring and singing along to it poolside, right? Okay, I digress, though. What was I speaking of? Okay, pleasure, can't get no satisfaction. Right, right, right. So the thing about it is a lot of times we're so busy that we don't even take the moment to be like, oh, I'm so satisfied. Like my amazing nachos, right? Like being like, oh, these are really mwah, like chef's kiss, so delicious, right? I'm so satisfied, right? We don't claim that because it just feels like ick maybe to celebrate feeling good. I think a lot of people don't want to feel narcissistic or arrogant or braggy. And so we want to, I think what that does is it sort of tips into just like low self esteem. So we don't want that. We want you to like feel good and to be able to feel good whenever you want. And to feel good, not just because some amazing thing happened. Of course, I want amazing things to happen to you, but not because of an outside thing, but because of like an inside thing, because I am cultivating and developing a feeling of satisfaction that is not based on a person, place, or thing, right? I mean, there are plenty of opportunities for those things to satisfy me, but it's like a conditionless satisfaction. It's like leaning in, it's a state that we can tap into and um, roll with. So, if you want some of that, if that sounds good, we're going to do some practices. But before, I want to circle back just to the one little belief that so many of us have that sort of messes with us a bit, which is, I can't get what I want. Okay. Maybe you've said that. Maybe you believe that. Maybe that's one of your limiting beliefs. Um, but when we generalize that out, it can be very destructive. So, like, if I'm just going to ask you to do me a favor, but deep down I believe that I don't get what I want, I might feel like there's strings attached. I might feel too scared to even ask you. I might not want to be disappointed. And so maybe something happens and it doesn't work out to prove that things don't work out for me, right? So that one little belief, things don't work out for me, can take so many interactions, right? And so many of us have this in one area. Maybe you can't get what you want in relationships. That's a big one, right? Or I just can't get what I want in love, or I can't get what I want at work, or I can't get what I want money wise, right? You can see where mine is. We all have one, right? And so then, whichever area that maybe you're feeling like not quite so much in, that's where we want to say, like, I can get what I want in money. I can get what I want in relationships. I can get pleasure. I can, get nachos. I can get whatever I want. Okay. And I want, even if it feels silly, it's kind of like affirmations. We're trying to reach into that elevated state. So we've got the intention and we've got the elevated emotion. And then that's sort of like the magic combo. So, what we're going to do today is clear some blocks because I know we all have them. I do, you do, we all do, right? So, let's get into it. And I'm going to lead you through some just simple practices. Um, I am a big fan of emotional freedom technique. I found that to be super helpful. It's kind of crossed over into mainstream psychology. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can do this like karate chop version where you hit the pad of your hand. There's also these 2 points kind of under your collarbone, and you just kind of have to feel around until you hit a tender spot. And then you kind of go, okay, this is it. It hurts a little bit. So be tender. You don't have to to your comfort level, right? I personally like the karate chop because I feel like it has this added like emphasis to it that I like. And then my tender spots are really tender. So I don't like those as much. But I do feel like connected to the heart chakra, so it can be good. But do whichever one you feel. And then if you're a newbie, don't worry, just like follow along if you like. I'll lead you through it. If you already know, we will switch to all these different points down here. So just follow along with me. I feel like that's the best way to do it if you're a beginner. And even if you're advanced, I personally like guided meditations just so I can be a participant and just roll with it. Okay. So, we're going to start with the setup statement and we're going to do a karate chop. Even though I often feel guilty when I allow myself to feel good, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I often feel guilty when I allow myself to feel good, I deeply love and accept myself. Feeling good is my birthright. Even though I feel guilty when I allow myself to feel good, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I worry that feeling good is selfish or wrong, I choose to release this guilt and embrace my right to pleasure. Even though I've been conditioned to believe that feeling good is indulgent, I choose to let go of this limiting belief and open myself up to the joy of pleasure. Yes, please. Okay, round two. We're going to tap through the different points. So we're going to start with the eyebrow. This guilt is about feeling good. The side of the eye, it's like I don't deserve to feel pleasure. under the eye. Or maybe I'm afraid of what others will think under the nose. But what if feeling good is my destiny? Chin. What if pleasure is essential for my well being? Collarbone. I choose to release this guilt now. Underarms, right here at the bra line. I give myself permission to feel good. Top of the head. And I trust that it's not okay. Freudian slip there. And I trust that it's not only okay, but necessary for my happiness. Okay, beautiful. We're going to do a round 3, tapping through affirmations. We're going to do the same exact points. Just follow along, but I'm not going to name them. Feeling good is my birthright. I release all guilt and shame around pleasure. I choose to embrace my right to feel good. Pleasure is my destiny, and I welcome it into my life. I release the need to justify my happiness to others. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm worthy of experiencing joy and pleasure. Under the arm, I give myself full permission to prioritize my well being. I choose to feel good without guilt, knowing that it serves my highest good. We're going to go back to the karate chop there. I release all guilt and shame surrounding feeling good, knowing that my pleasure is my birthright and my destiny. I choose to embrace joy and allow myself to experience the fullness of life without hesitation or reservation. Okay. So, EFT is a really exciting type of energy psychology, and it basically uses different acupuncture points. And so, when you are saying the statement, it's supposed to kind of cause a little bit of distress. And then, whether you're doing the karate chop or the points, basically you're sort of neutralizing out. Um, that circuitry, right? I'm also an EMDR therapist, and so I spend a lot of time helping people dislodge those negative belief systems with EMDR. Highly recommend if you're looking for really effective trauma therapy. EMDR, game changer. Okay. So just saying that those are all kind of under the umbrella. And I love it because it's sort of the synthesis of more traditional psychology, like cognitive behavioral stuff, and then the energetics piece. And so when you put those together, it's just so effective and really speeds up the results. Um, the next piece we're going to do is the loving kindness meditation. When I was the psychologist at the holistic treatment center I worked for, we did DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, also amazing for coping skills, just good for anybody, can do wonders. But mindfulness is such a huge piece of that. And mindfulness has definitely been a big influence throughout my career. I've sort of had a love hate relationship with meditation. Sometimes we're love, sometimes we're on a break. You know what I'm saying? But loving kindness is kind of a really interesting meditation because you direct it to someone you love that's very easy to love, and maybe to yourself, to someone that's harder to love. Now, I'll lead you through it, but I do want to just put that caveat that you don't want to pick like the worst person ever necessarily to start off sending love to. Okay. Let's make it like doable and gentle for us. So that's just one that I've seen people sort of get super ambitious and then have it backfire. So I'm just going to kind of lead you through this practice. And if you want, I think any meditation, I like to kind of just shake a little bit, get the little like frazzles out, breathe, arrive in the present moment, arrive in your body. I want you to just find a comfortable and quiet space where you can sit or lie down comfortably. You can close your eyes. Take a breath, settle into the present moment, and then let's bring our mindful attention to our heart center. Let's imagine a warm, glowing light radiating from this space. You can imagine like the brightest white light you can imagine, or you can even substitute a color if you wish. And what I want you to imagine with this light, this like ball of energy is like growing, it's growing, right? And it's filled with love and compassion. And as you breathe deeply, I want you to repeat the following affirmations silently or out loud, allowing each phrase to resonate with you. I'll just go through the phrases first and then we'll sort of tie them to who we're sending the love to. Okay. So the first one is, may I be filled with feelings of goodness. May I embrace joy and happiness in my life. May I allow myself to experience pleasure without guilt or shame. May I honor my desires and prioritize my well being. May I recognize that feeling good is my birthright and my destiny. With each repetition, we'll visualize ourselves surrounded by a bubble of loving kindness, enveloping you in warmth and acceptance. And feel this gentle embrace of the energy as it infuses every cell of your being with feelings of goodness and positivity. Now, let's extend this loving kindness outward towards others. Picture your loved ones, friends, acquaintances, and offer them the same blessings of joy, happiness, and permission. May your loved ones be filled with feelings of goodness. Yes, please. So they're not so cranky. Just kidding. May your loved ones embrace joy and happiness. May your loved ones experience pleasure without guilt or shame. May your loved ones' desires and well being be beautiful. May your loved ones feel good as if it was their birthright or destiny. Mm. You want to really just, sometimes people struggle doing it for themselves, but then when they get to this part about their loved ones, they pick their child or their partner or their mom or their fur baby, and it's easier to get into that vibration of love, right? And then, actually, for this one, I think we're gonna, instead of doing a more difficult person, we're gonna just extend it out to all beings here. So finally, we want to imagine again that white light, that like warm, compassionate energy. Extend it out to all beings, regardless of who they are or where they come from, and envision this entire world bathed in the light of loving kindness and sending out heartfelt wishes for the well being and happiness of all. I invite you to take a few moments to bask in the warmth of this loving, kind energy, allowing yourself to fully embrace the feelings of goodness within you and notice how your body feels. Allow any emotions that arise to simply be without judgment, without resistance. And when you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to the present moment. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Take a few more deep breaths. And slowly open your eyes. Permission to carry this feeling of goodness and loving kindness with you throughout the day, knowing that you are worthy of experiencing joy, pleasure, and happiness in every moment. And PSA doesn't have to be tied to a relationship, to money, to success, right? We don't have to check all the boxes to prove our worth or earn love, right? Instead, we can just tap into this beautiful energy of love and compassion. So, wishing you the best V Day ever and getting excited about starting the conversation on pleasure psychology. Stay tuned. Bye.